finances. So we helped with finances, and they helped with students. We didn't have enough students, they didn't have enough money. So frankly, in retrospect, and when we crafted the partnership, it really was a win-win for both towns. Chatham voted, frankly, with the biggest turnout in town meeting history to vote to regionalize by a scant 61 votes. But I remind everybody, and this is very important for this conversation this evening, that vote never, in my mind, would have been positive had we not promised to have and keep an elementary school in this town. So we made the commitment, and the regional agreement is committed to keeping and maintaining an elementary school in the town of Chatham. And I don't believe that regional vote would have happened positively, would have passed if we had not made that promise. So let's fast forward to today. You know, we have met all the goals for the region. You know, Harwich has saved tens of millions of dollars with Chatham's financial participation as a partner in that beautiful high school complex that is now a tremendous asset over there on Oak Street in Harwich. And Chatham students are really offered a greatly enhanced educational and co-curricular educational experience at, frankly, a much lower overall cost to the taxpayers of Chatham. So a win for Harwich and a win for Chatham, and that's why we crafted the partnership. But we had a little bit of a speed bump now because given fewer and fewer younger children, there is at least a perceived disparity, and a real disparity in the cost per pupil of educating elementary students in Harwich versus Chatham. And it's driven purely by the numbers of elementary school students in Chatham Elementary School. So the Board of Selectmen in Harwich have raised the issue. They raised the issue some time ago, a year plus ago we met, and it now has been brought to the forefront again during this year's budget season. So we've met 3 times as a working group with the Harwich and Chatham Board of Selectmen members of the Monomoy Regional School Committee to discuss the issues surrounding the dearth of elementary school bodies and the desire for Chatham on the part of the Harwich Board to pay a greater share of its own elementary school expenses. So as a select board, the Chatham Select Board, we've committed certainly to taking input and guidance from all constituents in Chatham, parents, students, taxpayers, before proceeding forward with any change either to the regional agreement or what we pay, et cetera. And I think I can speak for the Select Board itself, the Chatham Select Board, in that we were reluctant to recommend increasing funding to our taxpayers without receiving some assurances and a commitment to maintaining a viable elementary school in Chatham. So we understand that the perceived disparity in cost, but we're not ready to pull the trigger on a recommendation until we hear from everybody, until we get something in return. So what have been some of the suggestions to correct this disparity that I described and that we're perhaps are going to consider this evening? And I'll just go through them briefly and I'll be done. But some suggestions are Chatham will pay as much as $500,000 for this year's fiscal budget and going forward for some years, if you will, to make up the disparity. Chatham Elementary School becomes a standalone school, similar to the Brewster-Nauset regional model, where the elementary school does stand on its own, has its own school committee, its administration, its teachers union, it's governed on its own. It's an option. Should we decide to do that? It's an expensive option, but it's an option. Redistrict students in East Harwich, or those that live closer to Chatham, and those that want to come to Chatham, and bus them into Chatham to fill more seats. It's been suggested that we create an upper and lower elementary school, utilizing both Harwich Elementary School and Chatham Elementary School. Include pre-K for all in both schools, and have grades 1 and 2 in one school and 3 and 4 in another, 5, 6, 7 in the middle school, and keep the high school at 8 to 12. Expand school choice to offer empty seats to families outside Harwich and Chatham to take advantage of any existing elementary school capacity to fill out certain grades, not necessarily to add a grade, but to fill current capacity should we have it. And let the cards fall with enrollment where they may. Allow the school to continue to be quite small, and to share that facility with others, like a senior center or the Council on Aging Senior Center. So there's been a bunch of different, suggestions voiced over the past 8 months or so in particular, and there's much discussion, and hopefully input this evening on where we go going forward. And we need your input to get your ideas on the way forward. I believe that the region has functioned extremely well, and I suspect it will continue to do so. And I know that the Regional School Committee is meeting on May 6th at 6:30 to 8 o'clock, and we'll continue to value community input at that forum as well. I do believe in my heart of hearts that we'll need some creativity and some willingness to continue to be a good partner with perhaps some degree of compromise going forward. And I really do look forward to hearing from all of you this evening and find your input extremely valuable as we make decisions going forward upon your thoughts and recommendations. And I thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And I apologize for the technical difficulties I had earlier in the evening. I thank you very much. So off to you, Shireen. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff, for the background. We appreciate that. I just want to go over a few rules of the road tonight and before we get started. First off, if you're on a computer and you want to get in line to comment, you can do so by the Raise Your Hand app in Zoom, which is located in the reaction section at the bottom of the screen. Just click Raise Your Hand. Or if you're on your phone and have dialed in, you can push *9. Director IT of our IT, Craig Rowe, will be keeping track of who's is waiting to comment and will relay them to me. You may post your comments in the chat section of the meeting. It's located in the bottom section of the app. It's just a little icon that says chat. And our town manager, Jill Goldsmith, is monitoring and will relay the chat comments for the meeting. Or if you wish, if you're attending and you wish not to speak, or if you're viewing us on channel 18, you may email your comments to communityforum@chatham-ma.gov. Comments will be accepted until 4 p.m. on Friday, 4/16. That's tomorrow. Our executive secretary, Shauna Neely, is monitoring the emails tonight and will relay some of them to us as we proceed through the questions. I also want to note that our finance director, Alex Halela, is attending tonight's meeting for any additional financial info we may need. Okay, so just a couple of other rules of the road here. Please mute your microphone unless you're actively speaking. Always raise your hand to be recognized to speak. We are allowing approximately a half an hour per question. Commenters are provided 3 minutes to speak. Vice Chair Kokolas is our timekeeper this evening. Follow-up comments will only be allowed after all other persons have had an opportunity to speak. Participants are expected to conduct themselves in a courteous and respectful manner. Individuals may be muted or removed from the forum based on their conduct. So let's get started, Craig, with our first question. If you want to put that up, and I'll just read it for you. And the first question tonight is, should the regional agreement be open to address the cost per pupil and the educational experiences for students at Chatham Elementary School? Looks like Craig's got there you are. And that's our first question for tonight. Craig, do we have somebody in the chat that would, somebody in the queue that would like to speak? Craig?
I'm not seeing any raised hands at this moment.
Okay, all right. Nobody wants to comment on that particular question tonight? Is there anybody in the chat, Jill, that would like to speak?
No activity yet in the chat.
Okay, let me remind everybody that this is a listening session. And if you feel that you have a general comment that sort of is an all-encompassing statement, we're happy to hear those as well tonight. If these seem to be too specific to what you'd like to say, we certainly are here. And the reason we are here is to listen to the community. Shauna, how about a couple of emails?
Sure, not specific to this particular question, but a general email from Molly McGregor. She lives in South Chatham and she's writing to share her thoughts about the future of Chatham Elementary School. She has her oldest child will be 5 next month and is enrolled in the kindergarten program for Chatham Elementary next year. She says, with 2 parents working full-time, if public preschool or pre-K had been an option, we would have gladly enrolled him in that program too. She has another son who plans to send to Chatham Elementary when he is eligible. childcare is a significant portion of their monthly budget. She says an elementary school is important to a community and she looks forward to meeting more families in town with children of the same age. She said they would do whatever they can to get more kids into the elementary school, including offering universal pre-K, childcare vouchers, and increasing housing options to make it more affordable for families to reside in town. Considering the high quality of education, she says Chatham should be happy about paying the considerably low per pupil cost for the elementary school and maintaining Chatham Elementary as a small child-centric school with small classes is important.
Thank you. Craig, I'm wondering if we have a couple of people that seem to have a problem with raising their hand tonight. I'm wondering if others are experiencing the same thing. If they are,
I think Shireen might have muted.
go ahead.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you,
Yeah.
Shireen.
Okay, were you able to hear me before when I said I'm waiting to see if there's anybody else that might have wanted to speak? And I know that we have somebody that has difficulty with raising, so their hand is raised. I see one person. So, Craig?
Yeah, I'm not, iPad, okay.
Brandy?
I just said ask to unmute.
Hi, my name's Heather DeVoe. I'm here. I can't put my video on, so, and I'm sorry, my iPad is just named iPad.
Okay, that's fine. Don't worry, Heather. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to reflect back on the first question that you had asked, and that is whether or not what our feelings are in terms of opening up the contract, or what I lost the word that I'm thinking of, but whatever the agreement is, and basically short of doing nothing and leaving it exactly how it is it, am I understanding it correctly that in order to do anything with regards to redistributing finances and anything like that, that would have to happen? That's a requirement in order to do really anything other than not doing anything?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Craig, anybody else waiting to speak?
I'm not seeing anyone else with their hand raised at this moment in time.
I do.
Okay, we've
Yeah.
got a bunch now.
Okay,
I'm
great.
going to, Brett Tolley, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and if you'd like to make your comments.
Okay. I was trying to start my video, but no video capacity. Hi everybody, Brett Tolley. I live in Chatham. I have 2 children who are age 7 months old and 3 years old. To speak to this first question, I want to acknowledge it is a difficult question to address because it's very technical. And I think at this point, at least I've not reviewed the technical process of what is implied if we do open the regional agreement. So a little bit to Heather's point, it's kind of hard to know the details, but I wanted to confirm that my understanding is, based on what Jeff laid out, what we're talking about in terms of the per pupil inequity, if Chatham were to pay our equitable share per pupil, it would be about $500,000 extra going forward. And my understanding from getting some info from Alex about what that would mean to the average taxpayer in Chatham, it's around $60 a year. If we were to say move forward with that, which seems like not that much, it seems like that's not that much to make equitable. I would be willing to pay it. And we could do it without opening the regional agreement, right? Like I wanted to confirm that. That was confusing. After Heather raised the point and was kind of seeking for more information. I wanted to make clear, we're talking about potentially having Chatham pay the equitable per pupil rate without having to go reopen the regional agreement. Is that correct?
Jeff, do you want to speak to this? And you
Yeah.
probably could more carefully than I. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think to change the funding formula, Brett, you'd have to open the agreement, but it could be very specific to that formula, if you will. The language can be specific to the formula.
All right, but and just to be crystal clear, so there's no way for Chatham to pay its equitable per pupil rate without opening the regional agreement.
Yeah, that's my understanding. We did ask town council and we asked if we could do a sidebar agreement, and he did not believe we could do that.
Okay. So thanks for the quick back and forth. So I'll just wrap up my thought on the fly with that information.
Right.
I think the bottom line is it seems like to make the cost equitable, per pupil for Chatham to pay its share is about $60 a year for the average town taxpayer. That number is absolutely worth, keeping the elementary school going, paying our fair share. That's absolutely worth it. So to me, it makes sense. If the only way forward then is to open up the regional agreement, then yeah, we should do it.
Okay. Right, Brett, anything else? Thank you. Okay. Who else do we have, Craig?
Next up, we have Jennifer Connors. I'm going to ask you to unmute, Jennifer.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Hey, thanks for having me. And thank you, Mr. Dykens, for that excellent recap. That was very helpful. So I agree with Brett. I think it was kind of confusing, the first question. It sounds like in order to move forward in any way with trying to fix the compensation per student, that the first question, the answer needs to be yes, the agreement needs to be opened. So that's all that I say. I agree with the prior speaker.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Who's next, Craig?
Next, we have Michael Westgate. I'm going to ask you to unmute, Michael.
Hi, good evening. There was a survey done by MRSD in which they claimed that only 58% of the parents in Chatham wanted change. If you look at the actual numbers, that's incorrect. There's 81% of Chatham respondents said they either preferred no change or a redistricting. My second point is that we have to have a preschool program in Chatham. Wherever a child goes for preschool, that's where they're going to go through elementary school. So there should not be any option for Harwich to offer a program without offering the same program in Chatham. A third item, small classes are good in the lower grades, and while there's been some discussion, nobody has provided any evidence that I've seen cited that contradicts smaller being better in the early years of a child's education. Fourth, if you look at the other towns on the Lower Cape, they range in per child tuition from 20,000 to 31,000. Chatham is currently about 17. Good education is expensive. I think it's worth it. I think it's a good investment, both in the child's education and in the vitality of the town of Chatham. Fifth point, if it's the per child cost that's being used to drive this, there's two ways to handle that equation. One of them being to bring more kids in through the redistricting and encouraging Harwich parents to send their kids to Chatham Elementary. I'm not asking that anybody involuntarily do so, but if you drew a line such that 20 to 30% of the children in the total district were assigned to Chatham Elementary, and the bus system was set up so that it was easy for them to do so, I think that you could make it more equitable in terms of the cost per child per class. I'd like to avoid any dramatic changes in the next 2 years. We've been suffering through a pandemic. The numbers of the past year aren't necessarily valid for the coming years. Anecdotally, there are more mothers pushing baby carriages around downtown. Whether they'll stay here year round or they're just here for the duration of COVID, we don't know. One of the charts in the MRSD presentation showed 250 incoming in-choice students, bringing in about $1.4 million, and 150 outgoing out-choice students, which cost the district about $1.1 million. If you're looking at the overall numbers, that's an area that I hope the schools committee would do everything that they can to change that balance favorably. So I think of $500,000, ideally voluntarily on the part of Chatham without changing the school district. I'd hope for a second opinion from attorney as to whether that's possible or not. But I think that would be a very good investment, and I would support it. My final thought is that I think the selectmen should think big. We've worked with Chatham, with Harwich on a variety of other topics. The underlying cause of the inequities is housing costs, and land is 2/3 of the cost of housing. Harwich land costs about half what Chatham land costs. So in addition to looking at sharing our educational costs, I hope we would look like Orleans has and Eastham has at sharing costs of housing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael, for your thoughts. Just a reminder that we are on a 3-minute time limit for speakers. I know we don't have a lot right now, but I think forthcoming. Jill, are there any comments in the chat room?
No comments.
Okay, how about Shauna, do you have any emails?
Another general that's not necessarily reflective of this question, but this is from Carol Scott.
Okay.
Perhaps it's time to remind each of you and the citizens of Chatham that the Council on Aging and the elementary school shared their building in the late 80s. Now with declining enrollment, but the desire to keep the school functioning it is time to consider the shared facilities once again. When I volunteered in the 80s, the ratio of elderly to youngster was opposite of what it is today. Let's do it again, update the school, share it, and save the town a bundle of money. Let's keep the elementary school open and the COA in the village with a level piece of property with plenty of parking.
Okay, thank you, Shauna. Craig, it looks like we have a few more hands raised.
That is correct. Bree Schreiner, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and I apologize for the pronunciation.
No worries. Thank you. My name is Bree Schreiner. I am a parent of 3 children, one at the middle school, one in kindergarten at Chatham, and a 3-year-old. If there had been an easier option for me to do preschool in Chatham, I would have done that, but he is not in town for his preschool / daycare experience. I agree with Brett. In the very beginning, when asked to comment on question number 1, I was sort of speechless because it just was a confusing question to me. I thought that the easy answer was, well, it seemed logical to answer yes, if that meant that's all we need to do to start the conversation on the $500,000 increase that it would take to keep our wonderful elementary school open and functioning in its amazing capacity it does today for our children. And I want to echo the idea that if the tax rate increase to individuals is just a mere 0.007% of the home's value, which then what Brett said amounts to about $70 for the medium home value in Chatham. I really can't imagine any taxpayer here with any set of any sort of value or heart that would say, no, I'd rather not participate in that. I just think it would be a resounding yes, of course, of course, of course. And as a parent, I would say that the small school size that we have has been just an amazingly wonderful experience for my own children. And my experience, of course, doesn't echo everyone else's, but I'm just one of many in a sea of people who are trying to keep the elementary school as it is. And I echo everyone else's points so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bree. Okay, Craig, who else do we have tonight?
Next up, we have someone on an iPad. I'm going to request you to unmute.
Hi, it's Heather DeVoe here again. So I have 3 children. My oldest is in 2nd grade, my middle child is in 1st grade, and my youngest is 3, gonna be 4. So he'll be going into kindergarten, not this coming fall, but the fall after. And I agree. I want to echo the fact that I fully support this initiative to open the agreement, since we've decided that that's what needs to happen, and that the elementary school is 100% worth the seemingly very small increase in what our tax dollars already are, and what they're going, what we already pay taxes to the town for services that we believe to be important and valuable. And so that being, water and sewer and everything else that's going on, I feel like the elementary school should be right there at the top of the list in terms of things that are valuable. So my only questions that I had as a follow-up were, I just wanted clarification on basically, there's been a lot of things talked about and in Scott Carpenter's emails, the way he presents the statistics on school choice versus interschool, like Chatham, between Chatham and Harwich, and then also school choice going outside of those 2 towns. I would love to be able to have a clear picture and a clear report on how many applicants we get every year, how many are turned away. I've heard that now you actually can't go to Chatham as a Harwich resident, that is not an option. I don't know that if that's true or not, but just to kind of have a better idea, because the amount of people that I have talked to that have said, well, my cousin tried to apply there in Dennis, they were told no, or my friend in Harwich, or not, maybe not Harwich, or Orleans or whatever, were turned away, that I feel like there's somewhat of a reputation or a stigma that don't even bother, they're not going to take you, it's not an option, it's not going to happen. So just curious to know how many people are applying, what are those statistics, because I feel like we'd have a more clear picture as to, what the growth rate could be if those other towns were open to, being welcomed into the school. And I understand he's presented it also from the fact that, oh, well, you can't let 5 people in because then you can have a class of like only 5 people.
Heather,
Yeah.
I think we're getting a little off topic here on this. It could be relevant to the regional agreement, but I think that this is really a key question for us to understand about if we do open up the regional agreement, to take a harder look at these issues. But I think as far as getting a report on this, Heather, I think this is something that I would put an agenda item request towards the Monomoy Regional School Committee. I think that they're the best served to give you those answers. I don't think we can answer that tonight, but
no,
I really appreciate you raising the issue. So.
Sure, no, it was really just because that is, whether or not school choice is a big picture as to the numbers that we're looking at in terms of, keeping the elementary school alive and well, if it's not going to happen because of that, that was the only reason I brought that up.
Okay, well, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Who else do we have, Craig?
Next up, we have Patricia DeAngelis. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Trish DeAngelis and I live in Chatham. I am a new mom. My baby was born on St. Patrick's Day just 4 weeks ago, and I've waited 3 years now. I've been in the adoption process, and I've just found out on St. Patrick's Day that I have a baby that was born in Florida. So now I have a son and he's beautiful. And so I've waited my whole life to be a mom. And a few years ago, I was a child abuse prosecutor for many years in upstate New York. And then I was elected DA of my county. And I say that only because I worked really hard and just put a lot of people in prison for a long time. And I finally came to the point where I was said, I want to have a child of my own and I want to live somewhere safe. And so I moved to Chatham because I spent my summers here, and my sister works at Chatham Elementary School as a teacher, and my niece and nephew went there, and my brother-in-law and his whole family, and I love this place. And it's really important to me to have a small town. I can't speak to the regional agreement because I've kind of been out of commission for a few weeks down in Florida getting my son, but I support everything that Brett said, everything Bree said. And I'm also concerned about what Heather mentioned regarding the school choice, because now that I've adopted this beautiful child and spent a lot of money on that, I'm hoping that I'll be able to save money and buy a home in Chatham, because I really want my child to go to Chatham Elementary School. The small classroom is really, really important to me. It just, for me, growing up in a town where I went to, had a small town school, the children who know the teachers, the bus drivers, the janitors, everybody in that school, and they can stay in that school for the entire 5 years, 6 years of elementary school, whatever it is, that to me is critically important, because that builds confidence in the children, and that will help them, that will help their education. It will help them grow and be confident, intelligent, outspoken people. And that to me is really important for my child. It just having that and knowing that the kids are feeling good and feeling confident where they are, that's really important to me. So I just wanted to say that there is a new baby in town, and he will be going to Chatham Elementary School hopefully someday. So I am a mom, and I want to do whatever I can to help make sure that Chatham Elementary School stays where it is. I don't want my child going 3 years at one school, busing to another one, and then having to go 2 years at another school. If that is the case, I am going to have to send my child to the Catholic school, and I really didn't want to do that. I want my child to stay in Chatham. So just wanted to share my thoughts with you, and I appreciate your time.
Trish, thank you very much, and congratulations on your new baby.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you around town. Okay, who else do we have, Craig?
We have Jess Rogers. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, my name's Jess Rogers. I have 3 children in town, one in the middle school. I have a first grader right now and a preschooler. I was just, reflecting on my experience going through Chatham Elementary School, all of my children's experiences going through Chatham Elementary School, and how much we value having such a small class. But then I was thinking about the impact that being in such a small school has had during the pandemic, and just how when our whole world was turned upside down last spring and everybody was just, flipped upside down, we would go for lunch and pick up the lunches from the middle school. And while we were there, my kids, we would roll down the windows and they would be able to say hello at a distance, masked, to their favorite lunch ladies as they gave them their lunch. And it was just such a nice treat and a little bit of normal. And I was just thinking that if we were in a large school, they wouldn't have that. They loved seeing Miss Bonnie and Miss Mary, and having that little interaction with somebody who knew them. Miss Bonnie, when my daughter was in 3rd grade, they would do the Living Museum project, and Miss Bonnie, the lunch lady, saw my daughter do her Audrey Hepburn speech and gave her a poster of Audrey Hepburn a couple of days later. And she's in 5th grade right now, and it's still hanging up in her room. So it's like, if you're a part of a small school, you have that ability to make these connections with people that you wouldn't get to otherwise. And that's my comment. So yes, it's worth the extra taxes. I'd happily pay for it because this is just such an amazing experience for our children to have. It's definitely worth it.
Thank you, Jess. That was a nice little story. Love the lunch lady references. Okay, who else do we have? Craig.
We have Elaine Gibbs.
Okay, welcome, Elaine.
Hi, thank you. I obviously don't have children within the system, so can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I don't have children in the school system, so I would not presume to understand all the concerns and fears the parents have. This was my greatest concern during the regionalization back in 2012, that this is where we were going to be at this point. I think what we need to do is look at our short-term objectives and our long-term objectives. The short-term are to get us through the next year or two to make sure the school is viable. My concern is Scott Carpenter has said that by 2025, there are only going to be 58 children within the Chatham Elementary School from Chatham. The school capacity, I think at its height was around 270. It's 54,000 square feet. I would refer back to Carol Scott's letter earlier. What I want to do is have a viable school that is part of the district, but that is going to attract other children. And I think we need to seriously consider the fact that we are thinking of spending $8.5 million on a council on aging down in West Chatham, when we may have a lot of space in a 54,000 square foot building. If we could allocate 10,000 to the council on aging, we would be freeing up $8 million that we could use to renovate the elementary school, to provide preschool, to attract other students, to put programs in there that would bring families to Chatham, and that would bring families in, as school choice in, because I think it's important to have a decent number of kids in a class. You don't want your kids alone with, only 3 or 4 children, because they need to make friends in preparation for middle school. I think it's a win-win for the town. I think it's a good location for the Council on Aging, and I'm a senior citizen. But if I had to choose between having a Council on Aging and to keep the Chatham Elementary School viable with young families, I would choose the latter. I think that is extremely important to the development of our children. And I think it's a small price to pay for the Council on Aging. We could, for a couple $1 million, we could renovate that school and make it outstanding for both the senior citizens and for the children, and put in preschool. And I think that should be part of any contract that we have with the district, that we be allowed to do that and to have some flexibility so that we can save the elementary school. And I guess that's all for now, but I hope we will think outside the box here, because it's a short-term problem, but it's also a long-term problem. And I think we have the capacity to do that. It's not just about money, it's about allocating it to the future of the children in town. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elaine. Okay. I think, Craig, if we don't have any other commenters, maybe we should move forward with the next question. Okay, not hearing. Our next question is, are our community members willing to pay more to maintain status quo operation of the Chatham Elementary School? We have heard from some folks that have already said that they're willing to pay. I think Brett had said absolutely, and somebody else had commented, but we're welcome to hear people's thoughts on this more succinctly. So let's see. I think we have a couple of hands raised. Craig?
That is correct. I believe Elaine's hand was raised previously.
Okay.
Danielletolley, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Welcome, Danielle.
Thanks. So I'm a homeowner in Chatham. I have a 3.5-year-old and a 7-month-old child, and absolutely, I would be happy to have my tax rate increase the 0.007% to maintain Chatham Elementary School. And I would also encourage us to think big and bold about, how we can really use the opportunity to that's in front of us with space in the elementary school. How can we attract more families to Chatham so that we can increase the enrollment? And I think that includes having transparency about school choice, whether that's out of district or intra-district, really understanding over the last 5 years specifically how many applicants have been applying, from which towns, why have they been denied or turned away, understanding, really having a clear picture of that process. And also We know that childcare, early education is really hard for families. And my son, he goes to he goes to preschool in Brewster. We would have loved to have him go to preschool in Chatham if there was an option available to us when we were seeking it. And so I think there are a lot of ideas for how to be innovative with early childhood education programs that could be housed in the Chatham Elementary School. And I really encourage the board and the school committee to be creative and bold and be innovative when they think about how we can use the opportunity to support families with young children.
Thank you, Danielle. Craig, any more commenters?
Yes, we do. We have Jennifer Connors. I'm going to request you to unmute.
Jennifer?
Hello, this is actually Jennifer's husband, Jeff Shortis.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi. I just wanted to say that, you know, for us, it's very important that the kids are able to, you know, stay in Chatham and be part of their community. I think there's really no tighter attachment for a child and the town they grow up in than to kind of go to elementary school there. And for, you know, the kind of marginal cost of $60 per year, I think is the estimate, that is well worth the investment. In our opinion, we don't have any other children that will be going to the elementary school, but we think it's a great school and a very worthwhile cause to invest in.
Thank you. And Jill, any chats?
No chats for answers to this question.
Okay, great. How about you, Shauna? Any other emails that you'd care to read right now?
Sure, several on this one from Elizabeth Packard, who's in South Chatham. She says that Chatham Elementary School's educational quality is very good. Chatham Elementary School's per pupil cost is currently lower than all other Lower Cape elementary schools, and we as a town should be willing to pay for our elementary school. We should do whatever we can to get more kids in the elementary school, including increasing housing options. We should avoid any rash decisions or dramatic alterations to the elementary school during a pandemic. Maintaining the elementary school as a small, child-friendly school with small classes is key to this community. From Lynn Fleffner, very, very similar comments that we should be willing to pay. Also very similar comments from Paulette Fellig. Chatham residents should be asked and willing to assist with the minimal tax assistance suggested. Preschool is a must, it should be offered. And from Mildred Hastabaka, yes, I am willing to pay more to keep status quo operation of Chatham Elementary School. I respectfully request that the board vote to approve whatever actions are required to make this happen.
Great, thank you. Are there any other commenters in the waiting in the room? Craig?
I'm not seeing anyone with their hand raised.
All right, well, we'll move on to the next question then, if everybody's ready for that. Our next question is, should Chatham explore withdrawing Chatham Elementary School from the Monomoy Regional School District? Okay, so do we have any commenters on that particular? I see Shauna has a question from, go ahead, Shauna. Did you have a question or are you just posting it in the chat? Oh, I see she's posting in the chat.
I was just posting in the chat, but I do have one email on this.
Okay, go ahead.
From Jennifer Pickett, a resident of South Chatham, mother of 2, currently attending Chatham Elementary. She would not have moved here if Chatham did not have its own pre-K to 4 elementary school. She suggests maybe adding 5th graders would not be bad. Small school and small class sizes are a very large part of why she wanted to live here. She said if it costs more to keep things that way, then we the people of Chatham should be willing to pay for it. However, Harwich Elementary and Chatham Elementary schools are never going to be the same, and instead of trying to make that happen, it makes more sense to run them independently. She has nothing but praise for teachers and staff of Chatham Elementary. They have innovative ideas and more independence might allow them to more easily and quickly implement these ideas. This could make the school a magnet for other caring parents who want their children to benefit from such a quality program, and so enrollment might increase. She thinks that her feelings are shared by the majority of parents in town, so she hopes that you will consider them when making decisions on the future of the school.
Thank you. Folks, we have over 50 people on this call right now on this meeting, and the Board of Selectmen set up this forum to hear from you. And we'd really appreciate some feedback if you're willing to do that. If you have a general comment that you don't feel is relevant to any of the questions, we're happy to hear those too. So please raise your hand, let us know what you're thinking. It could be as simple as just, I'm just thinking blah, blah, blah. It would be most helpful for us as we process through this and we start to bring our voice to the Monomoy Regional School District, their community forum, and going forward, what some of the bigger decisions we're going to have to make as a community, as the Board of Selectmen, and potentially heading into town meeting. So I really encourage you tonight to let us know what you're thinking. We'd really appreciate it. So Craig, are there any other folks that are waiting to speak?
Yep, I think you opened up the floodgates. So
Okay,
Jennifer
great.
Connors, would you like to unmute?
Hi, this is actually Jeff again. I believe that when the original school merger vote occurred, it was promised that the Chatham Elementary School would not be impacted by the merger. And given how close the vote was, I think we know that if we had told people the Chatham Elementary School would be impacted, it would have failed. I think it's important to honor the strong sense of loyalty that the town has to the school. And, other school, I don't know that withdrawing from Monomoy doesn't sound ideal, but if that's what's required to keep the school, I think that's what we would need to do. And we'd be supportive of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, who's next, Craig?
Okay, we have Bree again, asking you to unmute, Bree.
Hi, thanks. I want to just quickly go back to the last question and then move it into this current question. I'm just thinking about how people often are bringing up this idea of moving to Chatham and wanting a Chatham Elementary School for their children. And that's one of the driving forces in coming here and knowing that there's this small, supportive, wonderful school for their children. I would say that strongly supports keeping the lines where they are in the town and not moving lines over to bring in Harwich students into the Chatham school, which sort of negates that idea. If from a personal level, parents seem to be repeatedly saying they want their children in the school that starts with the name of their town, it makes the most sense to keep the school as it is. And of course, you already know, I already said, of course, I would be willing and would hope that most people, whether or not they have children here, would be willing, just like Elaine was saying so wonderfully, that she would put the need for having the small town school or the school in general over a senior center if we had to prioritize. I'm for both. I don't think it needs to be either or, but I do wonder, just one more comment about the idea of fifth grade. I had never thought about that until right now when the former speaker mentioned adding a fifth grade. It just, a light bulb went off in my head like, oh, is that something that would be good for the town? I don't know. Does it make more sense to keep our kids here for a little bit longer in the school and the large school we have? But that's just something I wanted to echo and re-say because I thought it was an interesting point. And also the preschool, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Bree. Who's next, Craig?
We have Ignacio Mortelli. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Go
Welcome,
ahead,
Ignacio.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Ms. Shireen, how are you?
I'm well, thanks.
My name is Ignacio Mortel. I am the father of Jack, a 5-year-old who will be starting kindergarten in September. My husband and I decided to move permanently to Chatham. We're Washer Shores. When we were starting to think about adoption, primarily because we believed that we uprooted our lives from New York to Chatham because primarily we believed that the future, the way that we wanted to raise our son was the way that life is in Chatham, and that the education system comes with that. During the last call that we had with the school district board, I have to be honest that I was left with a very bad feeling, just a sort of a sense of the pit of my stomach, because I didn't feel that the issue was being addressed in good faith. I felt Mr. Carpenter's approach was that this was a Chatham problem and not a regional, not a partner in this. That was my perception anyway. That came from the fact that he stated in his own presentation that Harwich had 6 classes in kindergarten, and arguably in his own presentation said that that was a problem because of overpopulation. Meanwhile, Chatham has 1, or had 1 at the moment that he took as a sample. And he categorized that as a serious problem. Now, I, at that moment, just tried to ask why the narrative was that Chatham was a problem and not the solution to Harwich's overpopulation. This brings me to the case of school choice, which everybody keeps bringing up, because it seems like the most logical way to increase our enrollment. I have a current example. My son's best friend who lives in another town, not Harwich or Chatham, but their parents do work here. So they put in their application. They were told that they would have to wait, that they were asked choice 1 and 2, and they were told that they would have to wait until June for an answer. My question, and I guess it's rhetorical because I don't expect an answer here, is why is Harwich still an option if it is overpopulated? Why aren't parents being told Harwich is full, so there's no choice number 1, the only choice permanently is Chatham? Parents should be told this at the time that they put in their application, and the process has to be more transparent because they should not be made to wait until June when they need to make a drastic decision literally 2 months before enrollment. So having said all of that, what I call for is clear transparency from the school district board as far as what the open enrollment, the school choice application for students outside of Harwich and Chatham is, what those numbers are, and why Harwich is still an option. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ignacio. Before we go further, Craig, I think Jill has a couple of chats that she wants to read.
I do. Thank you, Shireen. The first one I have is from Judy Thomas. She writes, I'm a grandparent with 2 daughters, are elementary teachers. For them, I think more than one section per grade level is an important aspect for a good education. I myself went to a very small school, actually 2 grades in 1 classroom. This is not the socially most advantageous when there is a social problem with the child and the child's peers. No other classroom to place the child in. My preference would be to have the lower elementary grades in Chatham and the upper elementary grades in Harwich, which would give multiple sections. As a taxpayer, I would support whatever is determined. Educationally, I do not support the status quo. And I have one more.
Okay.
This is from Michael Westgate. Withdrawing from MRSD should be a last choice, only taken if Chatham's needs are not going to be met. It would be more costly. It is also important that Chatham and Harwich elementary students enter middle school having shared the same curriculum and expectations. And that's it for now.
Great. Thank you very much. Shauna, any emails related to this that you haven't read? Okay, I'm not hearing.
Sorry, one other Back to question 2, there is an opposing viewpoint. Please be advised, this is from Judy Patterson. Please be advised that I am adamantly opposed to keeping the elementary school open for a minimal amount of students and paying more taxes to do so. This just is not cost effective. The only way I would vote for this is if it is combined with the Council on Aging and the building would serve its purpose. With enrollment predicted to decline in the future, it is pointless to ask taxpayers to fund this building solely on the number of students that are predicted. We should combine it with a COA.
Thank you, Shauna. Thank you, Jill. Okay, Craig, any more people waiting to speak?
Yes, we do have Molly McGregor. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Welcome, Molly.
Oh, hi, hello.
Hi.
Let's see, I'm in South Chatham and I have a 2 and a 4-year-old son. So hopefully future Chatham Elementary School students. My 4-year-old will be 5 soon. So he is enrolled to enter kindergarten in the fall. And I don't think I've been paying quite enough attention to know really what's involved for this particular question in withdrawing the elementary school from the district agreement. But just want to say, obviously for personal reasons too, very willing to pay more in taxes. I think a small class size is important, but to Mrs. Thomas's comment about having at least 2 classes per grade, I think that is important for more socially, whether it is focusing on trying to attract more families with young children to town and or a combination of offering more school choice options. I am a fan of that. So.
Okay, thank you, Molly. Who do we have
Okay.
next?
Next up, we have Lindsay Burwith.
Welcome, Lindsay.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Lindsay, can you unmute yourself, please?
Actually, we're gonna have Harriet Beerworth start here. This is Fred Beerworth, Lindsay's husband, but first we have our daughter Harriet. Hattie, introduce yourself.
So I go to Chatham. So my name is Hattie, and I go to Chatham Elementary School. And part of the reason that I want to have Chatham Elementary School stay Chatham Elementary School because it means so much to a lot of people. And I feel as though that we should have our own elementary school. I mean, if Harwich can, why can't Chatham?
Great job, Hattie. That's a great.
Thank you, Hattie. That was very informative. Thank you for your opinion tonight. We appreciate it.
So just to sort of expand on that a little bit, a couple things. So first of all, my understanding is that there's not a single town on Cape Cod that does not have its elementary school, its own elementary school. I've also been told that there's actually not a single town in Massachusetts that doesn't have its own elementary school. I don't know if that's necessarily true. If this is really a distinction that Chatham wants, I'm not entirely sure what to say. From my standpoint, given all of the changes that are taking place in the world and given all the changes that are taking place on Cape Cod right now, and we don't know where things are going to end up, right? I think it's going to be a couple of years really in terms of, and before we fully understand the full long-term impact of COVID and, you know, population dynamics and economic impacts and everything else. So from my standpoint, rushing to make a profound change, especially one that candidly from my standpoint would be an embarrassment for this town, I think is extremely ill-advised. I think another point, I think a lot of younger people, and by younger, I mean people like me who are 50, but hopefully a lot of older people here too. The school is important for a number of reasons. It's central to the fabric of the community, but I also think it's extremely important symbolically. And I think the symbol that it would send, the message that it would send for Chatham to capitulate and jettison the idea of having its own elementary school, frankly, would be terribly shameful. I mean, unfortunately, talking about population changes and dynamics and everything else, you know, this area is already extremely challenged with the increase that we've seen in housing prices. It's already hard enough for normal people to live here. And I think that getting rid of the elementary school would just be another big step towards saying, okay, this is going to become a community for second homeowners, and that's really the focus here, and everybody else can, you know, go live somewhere else. I mean, it's terrifying as far as I'm concerned. And then one final point, and this is an extremely important point. We have been asking to have crystal clear disclosure and full disclosure on intradistrict school choice data for quite some time. And it seems that this is an issue that continues to come up. It seems that this is an issue, a question that remains unanswered. The answer to that question and what that data tells us is central to this discussion. This discussion should not proceed any further until all parties, until there is full public disclosure of intra-district requests and how many people have been granted, how many people have been denied, and the basis on which they have been denied. And I think it's important for the Board of Selectmen to hold the school district sort of feet to the fire in terms of answering that question. But also I implore you, the Board of Selectmen, or Board of Select Persons, excuse me, and also the people of Chatham. This is a central issue for the fabric of this community. And I just think that the message that it would send to capitulate on this, to have the horrible distinction of being the first town, not only on Cape Cod, but in Massachusetts, to give up on having its own elementary school. I think that would just be absolutely horrible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Fred and Hattie. Thank you very much. Okay, Craig, do we have?
Next up, we have someone on an iPad. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, my name is Bill Bystrom. And good. Hi, how are you, Shireen?
Good.
I'm trying to work this in switch start video, but I can't. So you probably don't want to see me anyway. It's probably much better not to. I'm 100% behind keeping Chatham Elementary School. It's a fantastic program that they have there. The teachers are dedicated. The administrations are dedicated. I'm sure Howard has the same feeling towards their building. But, you know, we're not really talking about education this evening. What we're talking about is finance. Is the dollar situation or the fiscal situation is that seems to be the driver behind this whole discussion. And one thing we should think of when we discuss, for example, withdrawing the Chatham Elementary School from the region, is that the state of Massachusetts encourages regional school systems. And to that end, they increase the reimbursement that they give to regional school districts. In other words, we receive more for busing, for education, et cetera, than if we were a standalone educational entity. For that reason, from a fiscal point of view, it makes a lot of sense to stay within the confines of the region, but try to negotiate a more equitable agreement between both towns. There are certain things that I think we should just look at very, very quickly. One, we're in the middle of a COVID situation, obviously. So because of that, there are certain student populations that may not be considered in the projections. For example, homeschooling. There are a number of people have removed their children from Monomoy to homeschool them during this crisis. As that crisis comes to an end, will those people be planning on returning to the respective elementary schools next year? I think the answer to that most likely is yes. There is also a significant number of people in both communities that are remote learners this year. In other words, they chose not to have their children attend either Chatham or Howard physically, but instead to educate them remotely. Are the remote learners included in the statistics? I think that's a very, very important thing. Second, last thing is this. When we talk about things that we could do to improve the population shift, how about putting pre-K education back in Chatham where it was prior to this year, and also increasing pre-K? Again, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and thank you for running this forum.
Thanks, Bill, and thanks, Tilda, for keeping time on Bill. I heard you in the background telling him his time was up. Okay, Craig, who do we have next?
We have someone calling in on the telephone. I believe it's Herb Bassett. I'm going to ask you to unmute by *6, Herb, I believe.
Welcome,
There we
Herb.
go.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. My wife and I have been sitting here scribbling on different pieces of paper. She would like to speak after me, and I really don't know what she's going to say. So if there's conflict, that's married life. At least 3 of the select board come from families like my wife's and myself, whose history in Chatham and Chatham schools goes back for generations. And I'm happy to say that our oldest daughter became a school teacher, and we're very proud of that. There are a lot of reasons behind wanting to keep the school open. You may remember I spoke pretty fervently about the regionalization and the benefits I thought it would bring the town. One of the things, though, that gave me comfort, and my wife too, was that we were going to keep the elementary schools in each town and give the kids an identity of which town that they were starting out in. A lot of people have said, and some publicly, that an elementary school really represents part of the heart and soul of a town, and boy, we really agree with that. Let's see, I'm trying to make this out. And if the proposal to merge had been to include the elementary schools together, I probably would have spoken very differently. I want to pour a little gasoline on the fire and ask that if we reopen the agreement, and Chatham is going to pay more money, and I have no problem with that, but could Chatham gain 1 more school board committee member? I think that's a valid question and should be looked at. And now I'm going to let my wife talk, and goodness knows what she's going to say. And it's Terry you'll be talking to next. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. Welcome, Terry.
Hi, Shireen.
Hi there.
Mine's a little different from Herb's, but I'll let you know what it is. Here it is.
Great.
If we split our elementary school from Monomoy Regional, the town of Chatham could have a situation where 1, 2, or several students are high needs, such as disabled or special needs students, etc., that could add hundreds of thousands of dollars to the cost of educating these students. If we stay with Monomoy, these expenses would be shared. This is a good reason to stay with the Monomoy system. I believe opening Chatham Elementary to pupils in East Howard is the best option, and I believe redistricting is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you very much. Okay, Craig, anybody else?
Yep, we have Elizabeth Packard. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Liz, another South Chathamite. Welcome.
Hi. Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for also reading my email earlier. I just wanted to mention that my husband, Matt Packard, is also on the phone. I grew up in South Chatham and attended Chatham Elementary School with my sister, Heather, and my grandfather went to Chatham Elementary School, my father, and so on. So it's great hearing from people like Herb and other people who have, raised their families here and have really loved this town as much as so many of you who we've heard from tonight. I have a 4-year-old and a 9-month-old baby, and I'm really excited for them to attend Chatham Elementary School, hopefully. We are, basically just wanted to reiterate the support of, opening up the agreement if that's what it takes, so that people can, pay on average $70 per taxpayer to keep Chatham Elementary School open. Like I said in my email, I just was wondering if taxpayers really know how much it costs the average taxpayer, because we did hear, I believe it was an email from someone saying that they didn't want to see an increase in their taxes, and that's very much understandable. Like when you hear that, it's kind of daunting and scary sometimes. So I was just kind of curious if that number was, sort of out there in the public and known or not. And also just that I feel that the town of Chatham, there's no reason why we can't have, both my husband and I feel like there's no reason why we can't have a top-notch elementary school like we currently do, with fantastic teachers and a wonderful program, as well as a top-notch senior center. That it's not necessarily like the idea of combining them. We feel like it really could be capable for both things to exist in this town. And just lastly, that during this pandemic year where so much of the families have said there's just everybody has been turned upside down with everything, I don't think it makes sense to make any rash, and I guess it wouldn't be necessarily rash, but any very dramatic changes like from what we are currently doing. So if there was a way to sort of open the agreement and keep the elementary school going for a year or so, or just to be able to sort of maintain it as is as best we can, while still trying to cover the cost so that it's more equitable. We understand that and are happy to pay that change, to pay the difference. So just that it's just with hard, as other people have said, with people homeschooling and just getting a real sense of the true numbers in the town. I just feel like it's not fair to talk about how many kids will be attending the school since there's been so many changes lately. And thank you so much for having this and hosting it, and for letting folks like us participate and comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. We do have our Director of Finance on the call, Alex Halela. And she may be able to give us a quick assessment on that $500,000, what it would cost the taxpayer. I know that there were numbers floating around, but if Alex is available, or the town manager is available to speak to that quickly, to let people know. But I'm not sure that that's actually gone out to the public, in any formal statement. Alex?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I had provided some numbers, and looking at a cost of estimate of $500,000, would it be about 7 cents on the tax rate? So for a single family home valued at $800,000, a little over $60 per year, based on our current valuations.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Okay, are there any emails, Shauna?
Nothing additional has come in.
Okay, how about the chats, Jill?
Nope, nothing additional.
Okay, we'll go back to Craig.
Okay, we have Brett Tolley. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, thank you. I want to echo Liz's comments and appreciated hearing the kids in the background and your concentration, Liz. That was amazing. To the question of exploring withdrawing, the answer is no, because right now there's not a problem. And there's not a problem when it comes to education. I wanted to share a survey result that the Chatham 365 advocacy group took on. We surveyed over 150 people. 72 of the survey participants were parents of current or future children in Chatham, and 96% believe that declining class size was not a problem for student development nor to the school's mission. However, the vast majority believe that it was a problem because it reflected the squeeze that's happening to young families in Chatham as a result of the cost of housing primarily. Um, so, right, so we don't have a problem right now around education. And based on what Alex just shared, there's not really a problem in terms of the finance, right? We're talking about $60 per year to the average taxpayer. However, I wanted to underscore that it seems like there is a looming problem heading into the future in two parts. One part is because of the housing crisis, right? So we all get that declining numbers are happening. It's caused primarily by housing, and we need to address it. I wanted to acknowledge the select board taking bold action as we head into town meeting, and just to make this very direct connection that the future of our elementary school is directly tied to the future of our housing in this town. The other part of the looming future problem relates, I wanted to underscore what we've heard tonight, what I've been hearing from a lot of young people and parents in Chatham, and that's concern around the shift of preschool programs and how it's being talked about, communicated, the transparency around it is a problem, and the interdistrict, both between Chatham and Harwich and outside, how that's happening and the transparency around it is also a looming problem. So my sense is that amidst a pandemic, with these shifting moves and all of the surrounding stress, is a very strong red flag to families to say something is going on here. And it's not related to the education quality, it's not related to the finance, but something else is happening. So I wanted to underscore that. And looking ahead, if we do reopen the regional agreement, and that's an opportunity for the select board to negotiate or get something in return for paying more money, I would really highlight those two areas. And then to underscore what Herb said too, the school committee, is currently, I guess you could call it, inequitable. There's stronger Harwich representation than Chatham. And so maybe one framing or way we could explore what this could look like, if we're going to make paying more equitable, then maybe we should have the school committee be a bit more equitable as well. And I'll end by saying I just said goodnight to my 3-year-old and told him that I was on a call helping to make his elementary school a little bit better, and if he wanted to share anything. And he said that he would like his teachers, if possible, to be animals, and specifically a horsey and a chicken. So I wanted to enter that into the public record.
We appreciate that, Brett, putting it into perspective that there are children in this town. Thank you. Okay, who is next, Craig?
We have Carrie Marshall. I'm going to have you unmute, Carrie.
Welcome, Carrie.
Hello. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi. That was very funny. What's up, kids? So I am. I just want to say first off that I feel very strongly that Chatham should not withdraw from Monomoy. I think that elementary schools are the heart and soul of a community, along with libraries and churches and all those things that make it a small town and feel wonderful for the families there. That said, I am I'm a resident of East Harwich, and my daughter, she went to the Rocking Unicorn in Chatham, and 3 years ago, and we had hoped for school choice to go to Chatham Elementary School because we live about 1/8 of a mile from the town line. And although we live in Harwich, our lives are very much in the Chatham community. We go to church there, library, etc. And she made many friends in Chatham at the Rocking Unicorn and so on and so forth. And at that time, school choice was denied. And it was a little bit unclear why. And although we've had a great experience at Harwich Elementary School, I'm speaking to the population of East Harwich residents that would like to be in Chatham. And I know this has come up many, many times tonight, but I do think that having some clarification on that or opening it up to Harwich residents would would bring more people to the Chatham Elementary School, which is what we're hoping for, to increase the population and keep the school. So I'm just hopeful that will come up and be clarified, and hopefully that people can, from East Harwich and other districts, if they want to, come into the Chatham Elementary School. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Carrie. Craig, we have, I believe, Gloria Freeman on a call that wants to speak. She doesn't have the capability of raising her hand. So I'm gonna just call on her and say, hello, Gloria, it's your turn.
She may be muted. Shireen, do we know the last 4 of her number?
I don't. So Gloria, to unmute is *6.
Shireen, this is Shauna. Gloria emailed her comments in if you'd like me to read them.
Absolutely. Why don't you go ahead and we'll...
She has been having some trouble raising her hand or unmuting.
Okay.
She said I want to say that I find all of your questions hard to answer. In my heart, I'd love to see children educated in their hometown. I do believe, though, that we have a regional school system which can accommodate them, and that's a good thing. The situation is not hopeless, but it appears that the present situation cannot be sustained for long, so why not look now for ways to make that happen? The school superintendent told us that demographic and housing trends in Chatham do not provide any indication that the Chatham Elementary School will begin to grow in the near future. I have to ask if it is good planning to maintain a school building for less than a minimal number of students, hoping that it may be useful in the future. Perhaps a portion of the school can be used as a viable option, such as the COA. It is worth considering in the big picture. I believe the projection is that there will be 100 students in the year 2024 in a 54,000 square foot building. So why not have an asset utilization facilities optimization of the 54,000 square foot elementary school, as our finance committee suggested? I've heard that there will be 10 plus empty classrooms in that building. Is that correct? Townspeople need information to intelligently assess the situation. This can't be simply an emotional decision. Many taxpayers are on fixed incomes, and while we want to do whatever is possible for Chatham children, how long can this situation be sustained? Please tell us. We all want the best experience for the children of Chatham. We want to help them grow mentally, socially, and personally. I don't envy your having to make these decisions before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gloria, through Shauna. Okay. Craig, do we have any more speakers?
Yep, we have a couple more. We have Charles and Christina Karen. I'm going to have you on mute.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Christina Karen, and I graduated from Chatham High School in 2010. I was school of choice, and Chatham High School really changed me and changed my life forever. It was an extremely special experience. The teachers were beyond helpful. The classrooms had everything that we needed. I know that we have regionalized our high school, but I just feel like losing the elementary school kind of feels like we'd be losing our sense of community. You know, it just feels like we would lose what defines and shapes our students as a town. And I just think what Chatham has is really special, and not everyone realizes that. That's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so are there any chat comments? Jill?
Nope, all set here.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
Greg.
sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I have it here.
Okay.
From Katie Fitznickerson.
Okay.
Chatham is not the smallest school on Cape Cod. I believe Wellfleet, Eastham, Truro, and Provincetown are smaller and host more grades than Chatham. Those towns aren't trying to close their schools. And then there's the technical question from Stephen Buckley about how to raise hands under reaction. So if there's any issue, Stephen, either text me or try to raise your hand again, and we'll look out for it. Thank you.
Okay. Craig, would you put Stephen in the queue, please? And we'll call on him at that time.
I'll take care of that. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other commenters other than Stephen waiting? before Stephen.
I have Jess Rogers. I'm going to unmute you now, Jess.
Okay. Jess?
I was actually going to make the same comment that Katie just did. Chatham has about 170 children pre-K to 4. Truro has 110 to 115 from pre-K to 6. Wellfleet has 112 from pre-K to 5. Provincetown 120 from pre-K to 8. And then Orleans is 223 from pre-K to 6. So it just feels like if those communities are making it a priority and paying the tax dollars to keep their schools in their town, Chatham isn't paying as much as they are, and it should be a priority.
Thank you for that. Okay, Craig, who's next?
I'm going to unmute Stephen Buckley.
Okay, Stephen, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. From what I remember reading from Superintendent of Schools, Scott Carpenter, was that projections are, that looking forward into the future. But the thing is that I'd like to point out is that we actually can we can decide what the future will be. So it's not like some unchangeable trend that we have no control over. So the idea of, yes, affordable housing, perhaps childcare subsidies, everything we can do to make it easier for young families to remain or move back to Chatham are things we can do. So it's not some just wanted to get over the idea that that projections into the future do not necessarily, that's only if we do nothing. So I wanted to point out that there's we have some tools so we need to keep the school open so that we can let these other incentives catch up, and also in the long term. So that's my thought. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephen. All right, any other comments from in the chat? Jill?
I have one from the Westgates, support increasing Chatham's representation on the school committee. Harwich seems to be driving the agenda.
Great, thank you. Shauna, any emails come in since we started this process, or have you read them all?
Gloria's was the latest.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
All right, Craig?
Yeah, I have two more.
Okay.
Someone on an iPad, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi, thanks so much. It's Heather DeVoe here again.
Okay, hi Heather.
Hi. So I just want to say how much I appreciate everything everyone has said, because I feel like there have been so many valid points that have been made and stressed in these great bits and pieces from every single person that has talked. So I guess like my biggest takeaway of all of this is something to kind of follow up what this last gentleman just said, which is projections are just projections, and we are living in a pandemic, hopefully coming close to post-pandemic, and with real estate on the high level right now that it's at and continuing to grow, and the task force that we have in place trying to bring, and making it sustainable for young families to be here, it just seems counterproductive to, have these things in place and then have a potential for growth in our town like we've never seen it before, and then to just make a rash decision to close, a staple in our community. I just feel like this is just a really not a good time to be making these calls. And so I think that's just, again, projections are just projections, and can we have projections at a time that's a bit more, normal, and let's see where we are in another, maybe a couple years and see where we've come out from all of this. But in the meantime, if there is a way to open the agreement, and like the person had first said, who spoke to like how it could be done, and make it so that, a very, it was very specific as to what changes would be made to make it fair and equitable, I feel like that makes the most sense right now. So thank you so much for your time, and thanks everyone for all of your thoughts and opinions on this.
Thank you, Heather. Craig, who's next?
We have Elaine Gibbs.
Elaine?
Go ahead, Elaine.
Thank you. This is just quickly, I've heard a couple things here tonight that I think people may not be aware of. When we take school choice children in from outside the district, the state gives us $5,000. But if it costs us $16,000 to educate a child, we're paying $11,000. The district is on each child that comes in as school choice. So that's very expensive. That's money that we could certainly put to our own children rather than paying that out. I've also heard a lot of anecdotal stories, not just tonight, but over the past months, where there are Harwich families who want to send their children to Chatham. They're not considered school choice in, they're part of the district. They don't cost us any more than our own children, except that, you know, you're counting it as Harwich versus Chatham. So I think that that's really, really important that the school board and the superintendent really reach out to families in Harwich and get a firm number on how many people want to come to Chatham but are not being allowed to. That, to me, could solve the problem right there. It wouldn't require redistricting. It's just for people who have connections to Chatham who want their children to go here and have been told they can't. I think that's the very first step. We might be able to fill a lot more classrooms if we just do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep,
Craig,
Yep, we have, we've got two more currently. Danielle-Tolley, I'm going to unmute you. Oh. Go ahead, Danielle.
Hi. I'd just like to point out that when the regional school district was formed, I believe that enrollment numbers were declining back then 10 years ago. And likely the projections were showed that we'd be pretty much where we are today. So it shouldn't be surprising that we're looking at declining enrollment. And it shouldn't be surprising that we're facing the situation where Chatham's school is smaller. This, I think, was foreseeable many, many years ago. And so I don't think that this is an emergency at all. I think Chatham can afford to be very patient and thoughtful and intentional and innovative when we think about how to focus on creating the vibrant community that we want, rather than painting this as a problem to solve that's an emergency because Chatham has quickly found itself with declining enrollment, and that's a problem. I think this was clear that this was going to happen, and it's not surprising, and it's not an emergency, and it's not really a problem.
Thank you, Danielle. Jill, how about some chats? Do we have chats?
Okay, sure. It just opened up as soon as you said something. So, Molly McGregor wrote, "Seems like we have space at CES for pre-K, and offering pre-K could attract more families to town. It would be a cost savings to families with young kids and thus make it less expensive to live in Chatham." We had one come in from Ellen and Lewis Heeb, H-I-E-B. "I would encourage the select board to repeat this meeting topic again." I'm sorry, just lost it. Repeat this meeting topic again and re-advertise more widely so folks, especially seniors, could be included. Understandably, young parents have been active tonight. However, Chatham has one of the oldest populations in Massachusetts, and it seems that dramatically dropping student numbers that are projected in the future should be realistically assessed. Elaine Gibbs' suggestion to combine the use of the elementary school with the potential senior use might be a worthwhile approach. And that's it for right now.
I just want to remind people that we did a lot of outreach for this meeting. We've mentioned it at our select board meetings. We've sent out press release to the local paper. It's been on our website and on social media. So, and we invite more comments if people feel that they haven't had the opportunity to. You may email us at communityforum@chatham-ma.gov up until tomorrow. But again, we welcome opportunity to hear from you at any time. Also, there will be another opportunity to address this issue as we talk about it as of select board. Okay, Craig.
Yep, I have Kendra. I'm going to unmute you, Kendra.
Hi, thank you so much. My daughter actually is a fifth grader in Monomoy, and I have a third grade son at Chatham Elementary. And my daughter has inspired me to speak up because she would like to say a few things, if that's okay.
That's perfectly fine.
Thank you. Before she speaks, I just want to say, as an educator myself, I can't imagine a town not having an elementary school. It really boggles my mind and breaks my heart to think that we wouldn't have our own elementary school after the amazing experience both of my children have had, not only at the Rocking Unicorn, but also at Chatham Elementary School, and now my fifth grader at Monomoy Middle School. To de-regionalize that, it's kind of heartbreaking. But she has a few things that she'd like to say, so I'm going to share my beautiful fifth grader with you.
Hey there.
Hi. So, I just wanted to say that Chatham Elementary School really changed me. It was a really great school where I made my first friends and met new teachers and new people. And we did so many fun projects with the best people ever. And it really is just amazing. And I really like Chatham Elementary.
Thank you. Can you share your name with us?
My name is Grace.
Grace, thank you so much for your comments. They're very appreciated tonight. Okay, Jill, are there any more chats?
Yes, I have one more from Katie Fitz-Nickerson. Yes, we should offer pre-K and bring back the integrated preschool. I'm still unsure why it isn't being offered in Chatham this year. Both of my girls went to the integrated preschool at the elementary school, and it was a fantastic program.
Okay, thank you. Craig, do we have any more comments tonight?
It looks like we've come to an end, Shireen. There are no more commenters.
All right. Are there any other emails, Shauna?
No additional emails.
Okay. All right, everybody. If you want to just hang tight, I believe that we're going to have the select board make some comments before we conclude the meeting tonight. We've heard some very thoughtful comments from the public, and we just want to give an opportunity for everyone to sort of speak to it. As I said, we'll be deliberating this a bit more down the road, but let's have our Vice Chair, Peter Kokolas, go first. Peter?
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank everyone who participated tonight. This has been enlightening, and it's also, I think, it's understandable how the young families here are responding. It brings back memories in some ways, and I think about the effort that you made to come here tonight, raising kids, going to work, and in this town also. It's a difficult situation, and I think it's noteworthy that everyone came out to speak. I just wanted to let you know that the way I feel, I think the board feels this way also, but I think that maintaining our elementary school in Chatham is a no-brainer. I mean, elementary schools are the foundations of a town, and especially Chatham, and the whole character of a town. I mean, we heard a number of options. You've had questions about some of those, and I get it. You know, it's an education problem, but it's a financial problem that we're going to have to look at. And I think that we will look at this, very carefully with, in my mind, to maintain our elementary school. We're talking about costs. I just want to make a couple of comments about what I heard, and it's not a negative. It's just being part of this process for the last year or year and a half, and Jeff, it's been a lot longer. The issue is not, well, it is in a way. I think it's important that school choice and East Harwich families are be able to come to Chatham if they want to. But even so, it's a zero-sum game when it comes to the financial guys. I like to refer to them as the bean counters. Look at what's going to happen. It's the same number of students, whether you have them in Chatham or in Harwich, and the cost is the same. So that is something that is not part of the cost really, but it's and part of maybe what the fabric of the school is like. And I wholeheartedly agree with the comment and Mr. Buckley made, and I was going to make this anyway. You know, where we are now is if we do nothing, yes, that's what's going to happen. We're going to start seeing continued decrease. We can change that. I believe we can change that. And the key question here is maintaining a place and having the housing supply available for our younger families, and also to be able to bring in a number of Chathamites or other families that would like to move here by having a good supply of housing. And that to me is key. And that to me, I believe we can do. And I think it's critical to the elementary school. And it is key to the whole fabric of Chatham as we continue. So again, just thank you very much for all the comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Peter. Next is Corey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, most of you know my background. I mean, I grew up in this town. I was fortunate enough to return and move back here with my kids and raise my family. When we moved back here, my oldest was very young. We started out at the Rock, like many other people have, and he went to Chatham Elementary School, kindergarten first. He's a junior now. I got another son who is also in the high school, one in the middle school, and my youngest, it's last year at Chatham Elementary School. A lot of great memories. I want to put this community in a position for other families to share those great memories. A lot of positive years behind us. I mean, it doesn't have to be said, but clearly we're going to do what's best for the kids. That's priority number one. But an elementary school in our town is essential to the fabric of the community. We talk about the future projections and numbers. We have some control over the future. We can take actions and steps, and this select board and the community, I think, are making actions that will, change some of those predictions or projections down the road, hopefully. Completely supportive of maintaining our elementary school in our town. The mechanics look like we're going to have to open up the regional agreement. I think we should be very cautious of how broad of the topics we address in that process. But doing nothing is not an option. And I look forward to, I thank everyone tonight to take their time and thoughts and comments. I look forward to future discussions with the select board. And I look forward to the May 6th community forum with the Monomoy Regional School District. I think, collecting all this data and feedback will provide us better guidance to make some decisions we're going to have to make in the near future. So thank you for your time, and please, continue to share your comments.
Thank you, Corey. Dean?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My father was an educator, and I myself taught school for a couple of years. And education, particularly public education, was the subject of our dinner table conversation. And one thing I learned from my dad was that a good education is central to life. It was a few months ago when we met jointly with the select board from Harwich and the school district school committee. And it was at that session when we were hearing from the Harwich side that Chatham was expected to come up with more money to resolve what people were asserting were inequities between the two towns. It was at that session that I proposed we have this session so we could hear tonight from our people what their thoughts were on how to preserve Chatham Elementary School. I said at a selectmen's meeting a few months ago that a town without an elementary school is a sick town. And I don't really want to see Chatham move in that direction. I think we heard a couple of common themes tonight. One was voiced by many people that preserving Chatham Elementary School is absolutely essential to the community. The other was a strong focus on the intra-district enrollments between Harwich and Chatham. And I thought it was very interesting to hear from everyone, but in particular from the parent from East Harwich, because I've been interested in wanting to learn more about how many other residents of East Harwich, how many other parents of East Harwich would like to have their children enrolled at Chatham Elementary School. Whether that leads to redistricting or whether it's a purely voluntary thing. But I really do think the school board, and I know we have representatives of the school committee from Chatham on this call, look more closely into that, because it may provide the basis for a resolution of the enrollment situation. Excellence costs money. And if you want excellence, you have to pay for it. And Chatham is not broke. We can afford to do a lot of things that are important to this town, whether it's maintaining a top-notch elementary school or whether it's building a top-notch senior center. So I'm very encouraged by what we heard tonight. I found it extremely helpful. I hope that everyone on this call, whatever your thoughts and views are, will stay involved in on these issues. And I thank everyone for their time tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jean. Jeff, any final thoughts tonight?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This has been enlightening. I really do thank folks that participated and stayed here with us along the way and were willing to speak publicly. It really is very helpful. I share my fellow select board members' summary of the themes. Certainly heard loud and clear that, an elementary school, not having an elementary school in Chatham is not acceptable. I totally agree. I think it's a hallmark of a community that we have to have its own elementary school. And certainly I've never seriously, considered not having an elementary school in Chatham. It's just when we were asked to pay more money, I think it's a good time to think about how can we also maintain the overall viability of that school and maintain its overall excellence. So it's a good time to revisit its improvement as well. I love the notion of pre-K district-wide. I love the notion of investigating and getting more data on, I don't want to call it redistricting, but having true choice within the district. Would like to make a brief point about school choice outside the district. It only works if you have existing capacity. You're not going to invite a whole slew of school choice students in and create a new classroom. That is a financial no-no. But if you have existing capacity and you're able to open up some seats to students outside the district, it's an incremental $5,000 that doesn't cost any more money for us to keep the lights on and have the teacher in front of that classroom if you have existing capacity. Again, it's not a good idea to fill up another whole classroom with school choice. It's just not financially viable. Just really, really enjoyed hearing from the parents and looking forward to the May 6th forum with on the regional school committee. And I did see that many members of the regional school committee were on the call, as was Scott Carpenter, and hopefully they listened very carefully. I think there's some pent-up frustration about transparent data and information. I heard that theme as well that I think needs to be addressed on the part of the school committee and on the part of our superintendent. Other than that, I thank you very much for your time and your interest, and we'll keep a great elementary school in this town, folks. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Just briefly, I appreciate everybody's comments tonight and how thoughtful in the time that was spent to do so. So I was hearing, think big and bold, but go slow in our approach to what we were going to do. And I think we do have an immediate issue that we need to address with Harwich, with this extra assessment that seems to be looming over our heads. That doesn't mean we have to make any major changes, but what we do need to be doing going forward is how do we enhance the vitality of this beautiful little school we have in Chatham? And what kind of programs can we bring in to Chatham to enhance it? The key is also our work that we have been looking and doing for the last 3 years to bring more affordable and attainable housing to Chatham. This is a really key issue, and it's really important that folks show up to town meeting and support those initiatives, because those initiatives will help with the population of our enrollment in our school system, representing Chatham. I want to I understand the fear is real for everybody, but no way am I going to be able to support any kind of closure or anything like that. It's not what we're considering here. All these conversations are coming up. And the other thing I want people to understand, this is not a choice between a COA and an elementary school. That that is not even a consideration. So if you're hearing that opinion, or if people want to create that sort of battle and faction for going through us getting a COA and keeping a school, it's dead wrong. It doesn't exist. We can do both. And we can build good programs for our children in this community and utilize that building to the best of its capacity. So anyway, I just want to again thank everybody for their time tonight. And I do want to remind you of the Monomoy Regional School Committee invitation to Harwich and Chatham residents, families, and educators. And they're having a forum on May 6th at 6:30 p.m. This is a continuation of their conversation about the school district. And some of their questions that they have is, what's the best configuration of Monomoy's elementary school for student learning? And, you know, it's really key that that was part of it. What is the best for the students, for them to learn? So they have, if you go on their website, you'll be able to make a connection to how to join that meeting, which I'm sure you'll see us on that meeting as well. So we're going to conclude the meeting tonight. I think as far as our next steps are concerned, we'll be starting to set up and frame up our conversation with Harwich. I've talked to the board chair of Harwich. We have the working group still working on some of the considerations, and our conversations will continue with the Board of Selectmen. So in saying all that, I just want to acknowledge and say thank you tonight to everyone who was here, our facilitating team and staff, the select board, Channel 18's team for being behind the scenes, supporting the meeting, and just simply say good night, Chatham, and be well. And thank you.
Hi, everyone.